So back in the 80s, apparently everybody was doing horror films, including Walt Disney. For years, Disney has been the king of animated films and family-friendly films. But for some reason, in the late 70s, early 80s if you would, Walt Disney Pictures decided that they wanted to not do that anymore and to do something different than what they have been, successful at for decades. They want to do more mature films. Their first and only attempt at this was 1983's Something Wicked This Way Comes. This film was released on April 29th of that year and only made $8.4 million against a $20 million budget. For whatever reason, this movie disappeared, and it seems like Disney is working really hard to keep it disappeared. Because a film back in these days not being successful at the box office never stopped it from becoming a cult classic later on. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is a prime example of that. That movie actually flopped upon its initial release, and it was actually through VHS rentals and purchases that made it super famous like it is now. But I remember vividly seeing this as a kid. I believe I was in first or second grade, and we actually watched this in class. It was one of those films they rolled out on the projector, and I thought as a kid it was an awesome film. Again, I was one of those weird kids that grew up on horror films, so Disney doing a horror film, perfect for me. I was sold. But like I said, over time, this film has vanished. And for whatever reason, the other day I was like, you know what? I want to watch Something Wicked This Way Comes. So I went ahead and went on to the TV and started trying to look for it. The first thing I did was Disney Plus. I mean, it's a Disney film. They have everything else on there they've ever made, including stuff from Touchstone Pictures and other, film studio affiliates of theirs at the time. And so, guess what? It's not on there. So I went to HBO Max, I went to Hulu, I went to Netflix, and even Amazon Prime. Nothing. This film is nowhere. I finally found a copy that had been uploaded on YouTube and ended up watching the movie that way. So before we get into the rest of the story, I might as well just go ahead and review this real quick. So when it comes to Something Wicked This Way Comes, it's a good movie. So the plot of this film is really simple. A mysterious carnival shows up one night at this little small town. It is called Dark's Carnival, and it is led by the mysterious Mr. Dark. The two main kids of the film, they discover that the carnival is in fact evil, and that people have been going there and selling their souls in order to grant a wish. Yup. And you're probably thinking to yourself right now, that sounds a lot like Stephen King's Needful Things, which came out years later. It also reminds me of something else, another thing about, the Dark Carnival. There's some guys that dress up as clowns that are always talking about the Dark Carnival too. I wonder if they got it from here. The movie is based off a novel of the same name written by the world-famous science fiction author Ray Bradbury. It was originally written as a script in 1958 for Gene Kelly. That whole process fell through, and Mr. Ray Bradbury rewrote it as a novel and released it as a book in 1962. In the late 70s, Ray Bradbury had worked on a film with director Jack Clayton. They became very good friends and decided that they would go ahead and do another project together, this being Something Wicked This Way Comes. They went ahead and shopped this film idea around. It was eventually picked up in 1977 by Paramount Pictures. Wait a second, why did I not check Paramount Plus? Because it was once owned by Paramount. But then again, Paramount didn't do anything with this film, and this is how Disney actually picked it up. So Disney put Mr. Bradbury and Mr. Clayton to work right away on the making of this film, and we're super excited about it being their first push away from animation into more mature films. But halfway through filming, Disney I guess had a change of heart because they started to really get on top of these two guys about, hey, you're making this film too scary and too dark and you need to lighten it up. Mr. Clayton was like, okay, I'll see what I can do, where Mr. Bradbury was like, absolutely not. This is what we're going to make. This is my story. It is what it is. Which is also why Mr. Bradbury left production halfway through production. Jack Clayton went ahead and finished the film, turned it into Disney, who immediately started to tear this film completely apart. Disney went as far as to spend $5 million in 1980 money to recut and reshoot this film, which took an additional 6 months. This is also why when you watch this film, the two main kids in the film seem to age and de-age throughout the scenes, and that's because of all these additional cuts. Also, for whatever reason, Disney didn't like the CGI work, which computer graphics was something brand new at the time, but they weren't feeling it, so they had all that removed, and then they did reshoots using practical effects and digital effects. They even got rid of the dark score originally done by Georges Delure, which I probably destroyed his name and I'm sorry. Well, they took his score, which was dark and matched the dark film, and trashed it and hired an up-and-coming guy, you might have heard of him, named James Horner, who created a nice whimsical Disney-like music soundtrack to go with this film. So basically Disney Disney-fied their not-so-Disney film. Right? But hey, in the film, we do get to see Pam Grier. And actually, come to think of it, Pam Grier plays like a mystical Egyptian princess of the dead. So, being that she's playing a princess and this is technically a Disney film, does that mean Pam Grier is a Disney princess?